The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
We're talking about the future of Douglas now on Mannin Line today. Call 66 13 68. Text or WhatsApp 166 177. Email studio@manxradio.com. Councillor Natalie Byron-Teare is on. She's been involved in local government since, 2016, I think, when she was first elected in a by-election, subsequently re-elected in 2021 and represented Central Ward in the 2025 local elections. And Pastor Mike, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Andy.
And you've been mayor twice, is it?
Two terms, yes,
terms
back
as
to
mayor.
back for 2 years. The terms for 1 year, and I did 2 consecutive.
Okay. Do you, when you become mayor, do you have an ambition? Is this something you want to fit into that year?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was all about community building. I'm very much focused on from the ground up politics. I'm not a career politician, so from the ground up, and trying to bring better communication between local authorities, central government and the community has always been my ambition.
Okay, the leaders talked about this in the past and wanting to get central government involved. How much of a barrier do you think central government is to the progress of Douglas?
I think, unfortunately, personally, I think we're quite siloed on the island for such a small community. As an island, we're quite siloed in, and we duplicate a lot of things. So better, I definitely support better working with central government. I have seen improvements in that in certain areas, but we could always do better.
Okay, well, so the council, if I'm from memory, I'm right. Obviously, refuse and recycling is the council. Social housing is the council. Parks, gardens and playgrounds, street and public lighting, public toilets, car parks but not roads. Douglas Library, the cemetery and the Crem is yours. Enforcing local bylaws. And have I missed anything out?
No, I think that just about covers it.
Do you often get asked about the roads, because obviously the roads aren't yours, are they?
Yeah. So historically, the local authorities were responsible for pavements, weren't they? Pavements and pathways. That's now central government, and holistically, it makes sense, to have one department looking after, as I said earlier, a smaller community. So that makes sense. If I do get inquiries, I think a good local authority member should be fielding those inquiries. We have the contacts, people, general public don't always know who to get in touch with. So I would always say, in your first instance, get in touch with your councillor or your commissioner, and they should be able to put you in touch with the right person who can deal with it efficiently. Okay,
when you mentioned the word silo, into my head popped the word empire, as in, the people in central government will have their empire, their silo, if you like. People in local government will have their empire and the silo. And who gets stuck in the middle? It's the ratepayer. It's the consumer. It's the client. It's the ordinary person. And how can you stop something like that happening?
We need to work better together. As I say, I see so many things that are duplicated. We have resources within council and central government that I've seen that are being duplicated, and I think we've got expertise in certain areas. Why aren't we sharing those resources? And it's quite frustrating as a member to see that happening, because as you say, it doesn't only affect the ratepayer, it affects the taxpayer, because we're paying for that twice as well. It's not just about using the limited resources we have, we're also paying for it twice. So it's important for somebody to recognise and look at things holistically, that we can benefit the whole island. I mean, I sit on Douglas Council, but I always try to think holistically how what we do in Douglas impacts the rest of the island.
Okay, so does the council have, well, I'll ask you personally, what's your vision for Douglas? Where do you see Douglas going forward? Because obviously, at the moment, times are tough. Everywhere times are tough. People will always pick holes in things, and things are going wrong and what have you. So what do you see the vision for Douglas?
The vision mind for Douglas. So at the moment, I'd like to see more tourism. I think tourism is something that we don't do enough of on the island. I think it's one of our hospitality sector is fabulous, and we're not doing enough to support tourism and leisure. Would be my thing, and that's the great thing about chairing the Regeneration and Community Committee, because we get to host these events. We do the beach day, the fun day, the light switch on, these events that people can attend and come and visit Douglas. We're not, we do support retail as well. We have our city centre manager who goes through and tries and supports retail units in the city centre. But high streets are changing, aren't they? And we don't want to be continuing to push for something that just isn't used anymore. So we've got to use it better. We've got to get better use of our infrastructure, better use. And to me, that's about providing good parks, good gardens, good leisure facilities for people.
You mentioned the High Street. Let's talk about Strand Street, Duke Street and Castle Street. Could be better, possibly. Certainly Duke Street, with that big iron skeleton standing there for the best part of 10 years. Doesn't look good, does it?
It looks horrific. I complain about it constantly. It sits with our environmental services under our dilapidated properties. Our city centre manager has been working with government to try and get this done. Personally, if I was in any position of power in central government, I'd be saying compulsory purses. We have the powers. Let's make some use of it. We can't have things like this sitting bang smack in the middle of our city centre and not being addressed. It's just not the timing being left that long. It's just not good enough.
I mean, what's the situation? Is it the developers run out of money because they've obviously started doing it? I am
going to be completely transparent in the sense that I don't know the ins and outs, the fine details of it. All I know is, as a resident, it's not acceptable. Yeah. What are we doing about it?
Well, obviously, with the fact that they're racing on with that new travel lodge that's going to be on the other side, there's going to be no space to build. They'll have to, if they're going to do something with it, they're going to have to close Duke Street, because obviously at the back Fort Street, there's no space to get any wagons there.
Yeah, there's lots of rumours around, isn't there? I don't know whether the steel's any good anymore. Do they have to bring it down and put it back up again? Somebody's told me. I'm not a builder, I don't know. Other people have told me that it's fine and it can still be built as is. But the issue here really is, why is it being left that long?
Okay, right, let's get to the phones now. Let's get, I think Julian's with us. Hello, Julian, you're live with Natalie Byron-Teare.
Hi, Andy, and hello, Natalie.
Hi, Julian.
Hiya. Just noticing about the increased potential dog access on the beach. Has there been a public health risk assessment that shows that substantially increasing dog access to beaches in the summer season won't increase the risk of microbial contamination of the beach and the seawater, and especially thinking about children and infants, the way that they kind of like to put their hands in and suck the fingers and stuff. And also, have you thought about the repercussions of an incoming tide and what might be deposited on the top part of the beach, at certain tidal movement times, if the dogs have been on there, and then obviously it gets washed and left up on the top of the beach?
Okay,
well, it's important to note that this isn't, we haven't changed the bylaws to allow this. This is a trial. The original request that came to our committee was to allow dogs all access across the beach and in all our parks and squares. So the committee considered that, and we have had requests from the public to allow more dog access. So this was a compromise. We haven't done any specific testing, but as you're probably aware, but for those who aren't, the water is tested regularly. So that will be monitored as part of this trial process. And if there's any adjustments, it also really comes down to responsible ownership, doesn't it? We have ensured that during the trial period we have additional warden patrols in the area to try and weed out anybody, because the access, it's a request that's come from the public asking for more access. We've allowed that on a trial basis to give people the ability, but that has to be managed properly. It has to be sort of monitored, and we will see at the end of the trial whether that will be permanently established. At this moment in time, it's not permanently established.
Do you trust the public?
Yes, I think we have a lot of it's only a handful, isn't it, that will, what does concern me is that enforcement is very difficult. So I would urge anybody using those areas, if you have an issue, if a dog is out of control or a dog leaves a mess, then please report it. If you don't, you can report to your local councillor. We have a report it function on the main page of the council's website. Report it, because this is for use by everybody, not just the dog owners.
Have you got a dog warden?
We have a team of 4 wardens in Douglas.
Right.
They don't deal solely with dogs, Andy. They have a number of responsibilities. So overgrown hedges, things like that. So they are very, very busy.
Because the thing about this is that, as you say, it's a tiny minority of irresponsible dog owners. Don't blame the dogs. It's the dog owners that do this. But are they the sort of people that will respond to somebody saying, I wish you wouldn't do that? Or if you handed them a £50 fine, would that take the sting out of it?
That's my hope, isn't it? That if we do, it's catching them. It's catching them. And
are you allowed to fine people?
Yeah, we have quite significant fines. I can't recall one ever being served in my time. On council, but yeah, we have that ability. It's within the bylaws. And another thing to note on the bylaws is, whilst we're allowing them extra access, the remaining control and clean up is still, none of that is laxed. That it remains needing to be done.
Okay, Julian.
Yeah, well, you bring up an excellent point. If you can't recall anyone ever being fined, how are these rogue dog owners ever going to be deterred?
Okay, so in the gardens that where Glen Falcon is the garden that we've allowed to become dog friendly for a temporary period to assess, and within there,
for the uninitiated, that's on Broadway, isn't it?
That's a Broadway, Glen, yeah. And we will be putting temporary CCTV in there while we monitor it to see how that goes. And on the beach, we'll be putting extra warden patrols over there to monitor, relying on the public to...
Yeah, Natalie, can you see the point that Julian's making? If nobody's ever been nicked, the people who are irresponsible are likely to think, well, nobody ever does anything about this, we'll just go ahead until somebody gets a fine that they have to pay.
I totally agree.
It looks a bit toothless, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And I'm not wishing that we get to a point where we can find somebody, but it would be a good example, wouldn't it? So
yeah, Julian.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not against people having dogs. I love dogs and cats. It's not that. It's just this interaction. And I think if you've got a toothless policy, then it will be subject to that kind of thing. By the way, just one other little question. What's your idea about the groins being reinstated on the beach to try and get the beach sort of back the way it was and stop the sand from drifting away and try and build them up again?
So I'll give you my personal opinion, Julian, because I have sat on this committee now 8 of my 10 years on council, the last 18 months as chair, but prior to that just as a member. And I've seen two huge reports on the beach. And the groins, I believe, from the information that I've read, the groins aren't going to change the drift on the beach. They're not going to change the way it drifts. We used to have a cross-shore drift on the beach prior to the breakwater being installed. So the report I read was that now we don't have that, and it does build up at the other end of the beach on Queen's Prom area. We've addressed that now. Once a year we're coming and we're shifting it all back down. I'm not sure putting groins would back in, and I know that it's a controversial one because there's lots of people with different opinions on it. But in my opinion, from what I've read and the information I've been provided with, I don't think groins are the answer.
We had a call in the other day that said once upon a time Douglas Corporation issued 35,000 deck chairs when it was a bucket and spade beach. We've all seen the photos, 10 deep on the prom and people fighting to get somewhere on the beach. Is there any possibility of a bucket and spade beach coming back to Douglas?
I think we've got to look at I've looked at Douglas Beach, and one of the first things I asked when we started talking about it, because they were spending a lot of money on these reports, and the beach wasn't really being used when I started. So what's the point here? Are we trying to make it look nice, or are we trying to make it usable as a beach? We're very lucky on the island. We have beautiful sandy beaches around the coast. If you want to go for a picnic, maybe you'd choose somewhere else before you chose Douglas Beach. But Douglas Beach is also the biggest beach we have on the island, and it has a lot of diversity. So there are sandy areas. Yeah. If you go up Queen's Promenade and you want to have a picnic on the beach and you want to build sandcastles, it's doable.
If you get past the Empress, it's a lovely beach.
Yeah. We also have so many species and rock pools when the tide's fully out. So it's a very diverse beach. So we can't look at it as just a beach where you're going to have a lovely view all day of sandy beach and sea. But it has got lots of uses and
Okay. Julian?
Yeah, I have seen the different sides of the reports, and it definitely did change. If there's less drift, I wonder whether you could artificially put some sand down, try and get rid of some of the stones or grind them up. And there was talk at one point about actually taking the level of the stones down anyway instead of having the seawall. Has there anyone ever thought about that?
Who employs the guy on the tractor dragging stuff around? Is that the council?
It's contracted from the council.
And what's the point of that? What is he there to do?
So it's just it's a reprofiling and just bringing it down. It won't ever get past where it gets to now. It doesn't sort of go beyond that. It kind of sits at that level.
Right.
But public request was that we brought it back down. So a few years ago we started doing that. The difference we've got now, Julian, is over the last sort of 30, 40 years, since the breakwater was put in, we talk about stones on the beach now. The stones that coming down from the river now sort of get drifted onto the beach, whereas they never did before. They would have went out to sea. Another thing I read in the reports was about the whey that's pumped into the sea that feeds the seaweed. It's full of protein. Yeah. It's feeding the seaweed, so we inevitably end up with more seaweed. I recall Douglas Beach as a child, and it was by no way a means a fully bucket and spade beach. There were areas, but there was always seaweed. There was always rocks.
The tide's always gone out.
Yeah. So in my opinion, it's always been there. It's just we look back with rose-tinted glasses. It could definitely be better. And to answer your question, Julian, yes, we have considered having the seaweed taken away. We've considered putting a load of sand on there. There was a motion put forward to build a bridge to the Tower of Refuge. And unfortunately, it always comes down to cost, doesn't it?
All right. Julian, good to hear from you. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Okay,
Thanks,
just going back to the whey, is the whey pipe going to remain for the foreseeable future?
Yes. So whilst the beach is managed by Douglas City Council, it is owned by central government, and that whey leave agreement is between central government and the Isle of Man Creameries.
Okay, because we see it from here. We can always tell when the whey pipe's coming out, because I don't know whether it attracts fish, but it's just full of gulls all the time.
As I say, Andy, the report I read quite shocked me, because they'd sent divers down to look at the opening of the whey pipe and whether it was impacting the environment. And within the report, they said, it's not impacting the environment. In fact, it's really good for it because it's full of protein and it's actually the seaweed's blossoming there. Well, that's great for the environment in that respect, but it's not helping when it comes to keeping our beach seaweed free, is it? Or as seaweed free as possible.
Okay. What did Mike send a text in to say? What did Douglas City Council do with the £300,000 they used to fund the horse tramway? Now they're not operating it. What's that funding now being used for, as the rates haven't been reduced for that? What's the story? So
they were, I think it was a little bit before my time. Was it about 2012? Between 2012 and 2016, that administration that handed the horse trams back.
That'd be Mr. Christian. Was it Mr. Christian?
Yeah, I think he would have been leader at the time, yes. So it was a little bit before my time, so I'm not going to profess to know too much about it. What I can say when it comes to rates is, it's very difficult with rising costs. It's very difficult to keep rates at a level. So that I don't know where that money would have went. But it definitely would have impacted the rates following years in the sense that they wouldn't have had to have go up as much.
Megan on the WhatsApp said, can dogs go on the golf course whilst golfers are golfing? Because she's seeing dogs on the golf course. So
no, they shouldn't be on the golf course. Might be a good opportunity to mention now up on the lower part of the golf course we are having a dog fouling issues at the moment there. Dogs are allowed to under control and under the standard on the pathways, under control and on their leads on the golf course. So if you do see them off, please report it because as you say, there's it causes other issues for other people.
Okay, Texter 223, and again just going back to this dog fouling thing, it said Douglas Corporation hasn't prosecuted anybody for dog fouling since 2001. Is now the time to start?
It's really difficult, Andy, because I've raised this lots of times. Maybe if we find people, they'll stop causing issues. But it's catching them. It's really, really difficult to catch them. So unless we've got sort of you're caught red-handed, literally, and maybe we need to rely on the public more. And I know nobody wants to, I hate getting people into trouble, but you also have to think about the bigger picture. So I'd encourage people to report it if you see it. If you see something consistently, let us know. We'll send a warden down if we know if it's a regular dog walker that's causing a problem. Right. We also have some measures on my street where I live. We were getting it seemed to be one dog coming down daily, and we had little signs that we could spray paint. They fade away after a little time, but spray paint just as a reminder, and they seem to work. So there are little things we can do. If it's a problem area, please let us know.
Okay. Wolfie says, are the council going to allow dogs to go into Derby Square Gardens? Devon Watson said it might happen a few weeks ago. So the original request that came to the committee was for them to be allowed in all parks and gardens, and because of one of the things Julian raised earlier, because these are areas where families visit, they're sitting down on the grass, we didn't feel as a committee comfortable just allowing that. So these trials will depend on where we look, and we've promised the executive committee that we'll go back and we will look at each one individually and see if there's any options to allow. And the other thing we looked at as well was ball games in these areas. We are reviewing the bylaws in 2028, so now's the time to start looking at these areas. Is Derby Square the biggest one you've got? Because I think Hutchinson Square is. Oh, of course, Hutchinson Square is huge, isn't it? Yeah, the others, and. I mean, there must be dog owners in places like Hutchinson Square, Ramble Woodburn Square as well, and Derby Square. Responsible dog owners who kind of look at the square and just think, I could be sitting there just sitting there with the dog for that matter. It's really sad, isn't it? And a lot of families. I think Councillor Watson's point was so many families have dogs now and they feel restricted. So Derby Square specifically, we've opened up Falcon Glen now, so that's just next door. Right. So you have an option now, I think, in that area. When we look at some of the other areas, then we'll have to consider who's using the areas and whether it's appropriate to have dogs in there. It may be that we can section an area off just for dogs, but again, it really comes down to responsible dog ownership, and I think the majority of people are. Juan, you're live with Natalie Byron-Teare from Douglas City Council.
Andy, how you doing? And Natalie, how are you today?
Good, thank you, June. And you?
I'm very good, very good. Nice and sunny. The end of summer coming, but that's still nice, eh? Just listening to what Julian was saying before. Maybe we need some of them cameras they've got down at the port. The facial recognition cameras. That might sort the dog problem out, eh?
There was talk, wasn't there, about DNA testing the poop at one point, and I thought that was a really good idea.
If you're eating lunch, it's not my fault.
I knew Andy would say that. It's such a snowflake. When were saying yesterday, and I was sat actually overlooking the promenade yesterday, and it was a really high tide, very high and low tides at the moment, and someone went past with his dog, and the dog got in the crouch position and did what it did, and the owner just walked past, and it did it again, and that's where we are. You've just started this thing going, and again, you're back to responsible dog owners because they spoil it for the genuine ones.
They really do.
It's a problem. I don't know where you go with it. So for the bylaws inspectors, you're going to have to get a good collar on someone to get or a good lead to get a collar on someone.
Well, you've mentioned the back streets as well, the back lanes many times, Ewan, as well.
Yeah, I had that on my list here, Natalie, on how that's going now with this, with the highly densely populated areas of central Douglas. There's obviously a big overflow of rubbish with people that's living in these areas, and of course the back streets have been problematic for some time. But I know I've brought this up before, and I think Devon has been very forthright at saying that the system is working, the bi-weekly, but the back lanes are quite messy. On another note, beside that, I'm just wondering how you would, or what your thoughts are to trigger stuff going back in Douglas again. I mean, obviously the high street has fallen away wherever you go in the UK. I mean, it is problematic. How do you trigger change? Do we have pop-up events, pop-up stalls, bring the carnival back, all stuff that's going to bring people into Douglas to spend time here and shop? All
right, Natalie Byron-Teare.
So I'll answer the lanes first and the waste. I feel that certainly central Douglas, it's working quite well, the bi-weeklies, and you can see by our recycling rate. The lack of an all-island strategy here doesn't help Douglas trying to do the right thing. We need an all-island waste strategy, and I believe that's coming. I heard that at the last elections, but who knows, it might be on somebody's agenda this time round. If you have a problem area, I have dealt with a couple of lanes where there's been real issues with bins overflowing, people not taking bins in, and we can deal with specific areas. So if you have any, Ewan, drop me a message and we'll go and take a look at them and deal with each issue as it arises.
Okay. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, what's your email address?
It's cllr.nbyron@douglas.gov.im.
Ewan?
Yeah, and just the other points that I made there on kickstarting Douglas again, and also just dropping onto that, you're talking about the seaweed, and again, I have this thing. I'm coming down the line, Andy. I'm sure we'll talk about this on another programme. That the massive expenses that's going to be borne shortly by the EU on surcharges on fertiliser. That this can't be utilised and taken away.
Okay, let's specifically do that. Can you sell the fertiliser? Can you ask people to come and take it? So the seaweed?
We have offered, Andy, and it used to be that farmers would come and take it. However, from my understanding about when it stopped, and I'm not going to say when because it was before my time, but it was stopped because there was a case of they found E. coli. And then the farmers stopped wanting to. Now we do regular, and I've brought this up a few times because we do regular sea testing now, and I think we should be looking at it again, looking at it as an option again. If the farmers are interested, then definitely we should be looking at bringing it back.
Okay, so if any farmer or anybody in the agricultural industry can shed some light on this, is seaweed from a beach any use to the farming industry? Does anybody take any from any beaches around the island and put it on land? We'd like to know more. Ewan?
Yeah, I'll cover that on another note, Andy. I've got some notes on that. You're talking there about the build-up of sand, obviously, from the French Kia extension, which was in the 80s, I believe. Now, I mean, that's we're talking 50, 60 years for that build-up of sand to come along, and I see your reasoning on the groins, but if that's build-up has been there for 50-odd years, would it not be an idea to take that sand level down from, say, the Empress Hotel through to past the palace, where the biggest problem is, to drop that sand level back down to kind of where it was, so there was like a 6 or an 8 foot drop onto the beach. Now, I mean, surely that would cover the problem for quite a few years to come if it's taken 50 years for that to build up.
Okay.
You would think, wouldn't you? But actually, no, we did it. I don't know whether you recall 3 years ago, we brought it back down. I was quite surprised to see the old rings on the wall from where the boats had been tied up.
Whereabouts was that?
That was between the Empress and the Palace area. And we do still, we're doing it now. It's just being done, or it's being done. But as you can see, with the tide coming in and out every day, it builds up so quickly. And we started this about 3 years ago, so we are collecting data at the moment. I know that's not the best answer or doesn't really answer your questions, but we've got to look at how long is it taking for that to come back. So it is always there. We are always thinking about it, but inevitably it comes down to cost. We have to think about, how much money we're spending on the beach that is very underutilised, in my opinion, to all the other areas and open spaces.
All right, final word, June.
Yeah, and just on that underutilised bit there, Natalie, I mean, everyone goes to Peel and Port Eyre, and it'd be nice to get Douglas back on a level footing of some kind again, but underutilised facilities, you're talking about that. I mean, we've got the Villa Gardens, which I find is quite underutilised for events, and also Nobles Park, which, I mean, it should be a jewel in Douglas, and I find that underutilised. So maybe some, pop-up events with not as much bureaucracy around them, so people can actually run them.
Okay.
Would be great.
All right, thanks, June. Good to hear from you.
Thank you, June.
Right, so a message. This is from Ollie, who just said, if the beach is coming back, how long is it before the beach is going to be over onto the road by the palace? Because you can just before you break your ankle if you jumped off. Now you can step down onto the beach. So
as I said earlier, it won't go any higher than it does.
It won't.
No. So it hasn't been profiled from the 80s through till just a few years back. Sometimes it'd be cleared away with the seaweed, but it's never been reprofiled like it is now. But if you look at that the reprofiling that's done and then watch it will be back up there probably by the end of the year, if not by sort of early next year. But it never goes beyond that. It's not gone beyond that. That's kind of the level it sits at.
Okay. I'm looking at the 2023-24 Douglas Council accounts. 13.67 million from the General Rate Fund, 22.7 million gross income associated with housing revenue account services, 5 million of income against the General Fund Service. How's the council doing at the moment?
I think we're doing well. I think, financially, we're doing well. We're very...
What is it, 620p in the pound?
Yeah, that's
so it went up about 3%, I think.
It did.
Because, I mean, if you have big ambitions, would it not be an idea to say we're going to put it up 10% and we're going to do X, Y and Z? Do you think people would stomach a rate rise?
No, I don't. I mean, it's tough, isn't it? I think people have said to us, you should be reducing rates, or you should be... First thing we need to do is stop exemption on properties, because there's a lot of empty properties that aren't paying rates that the rest of the ratepayers are subsidising here. But in reality, the council is a service provider, and the cost of services, the cost of wages, the cost of equipment will go up with inflation. So you should always expect, in my opinion, for rates to go up at least by inflation, because you've got to cover those costs. So they should always go up with inflation. In reality, they've had to go up more than that on occasion, more so in the last sort of 10 years since I've been on council. But if we could get those zero-rated properties back on the books, you could certainly see a reduction in that going forward.
Well, this comes back to dog wardens not finding people and that skeleton on Duke Street, how long have we been talking about the abandoned mausoleum properties around Douglas, the ones that are empty, no roof on, the one that's next to Robinson's on the terrace? Even the pigeons are complaining about that. I mean, we've got dilapidated properties everywhere. The one at the end of, I'm trying to think what it is, by the old Park Road School, there's a place on the corner there, opposite the old gunsmith.
And let's not forget all the government properties that are sitting empty, the Summerland site being one of them.
So what sanction does Douglas City Council have if these are dilapidated properties and the owners are determined not to do anything with them?
So we do have powers. They are limited. We can ask if they're deteriorating, dilapidated, unsafe, unsightly, then we can request certain repairs to be made. It's very difficult though, Andy, because if those repairs aren't made, then the council have to fund the repair. They can put a charge on the property and recover it later, but that's use of ratepayers' money, and some of these repairs and dilapidations are quite huge. So our team work really well. I have watched them over the last few years work really, really well with these property owners to try and come to a reasonable. And the list has gone down massively.
Right. Do you have in-house counsel at the council, or do you employ advocates to do the stuff for you?
We do. We have both. We have a combination of both. We have an in-house advocate, but there are certain things that have to be outsourced as well.
Okay. We're with Natalie Byron-Teare from Douglas City Council. You want to get in touch? Text, email, call, WhatsApp.
Make Athol Airport Parking your wash and go partner when parking at the airport. With no advance booking required, simply park your car in the designated Athol rental return spaces right next to the terminal. Hand your key to our valet desk, and while you're away, we'll wash your vehicle and return your car to the terminal for when you get back. For prices and our full range of services, including comprehensive valeting menu, just search Athol Airport Parking online. Athol Airport Parking, part of the trusted Athol Garage Group.
Charity of the Week, brought to you by Kell Properties.
Isle of Man Home of Rest for Old Horses receives no government funding and relies on the generosity of the Manx community. Every visit, donation, sponsorship and event ticket helps provide lifelong care for over 50 horses, ponies and donkeys. Come and meet the animals at Richmond Hill. Follow us on Facebook for events or visit iomhorseshome.im to support us today.
This advert is brought to you by Kell Properties.
Corkhill Removals and Storage today. Loads big and small, day after day. We'll help you move, we'll help you pack. With a local or global, we've got the knack. Click CorkHillRemovals.com.
Got a Saniflow making strange noises? Call Sam at Redmond Services, the Isle of Man's approved Saniflow specialist for repairs, servicing and installations. Remember, Saniflow? Think Samiflow. redmondservices.co.uk.
Ellen Vannin Fuels promotes road safety and would like to thank their customers for their understanding about restricted access and deliveries on and around the mountain course during this year's Manx Grand Prix. Safety first with Ellen Vannin Fuels.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
And Councillor Natalie Byron-Teare is with us. And Eddie, hello Eddie, you're live with Natalie Byron-Teare.
Hi both. I want to talk about the lighting actually on the promenade. We came in on the Monday night boat and I heard quite a few comments from people on the boat, probably new holiday makers, asking where's the promenade. It looked a little bit like a B road. It's just the lighting that they've got there now, in my opinion, is absolutely pathetic. And I can remember over the last couple of years I've stayed at the casino a couple of times, and without thinking we just pay for the extra room to have a room with a view, and it's absolutely rubbish. And I'm wondering if there's any intention of bringing the old promenade lights back.
Okay.
So really interesting. I know this is a very common topic for a lot of locals as well as visitors. It's really difficult, this one, for me, because I don't particularly like the new lights that are in. I think they're very focused on specific areas, so they don't reflect the promenade. And we've got the benefit of hindsight and remembering all those beautiful festoon lightings that we had on the prom. It looked amazing back in the day. The cost to replace that, again, not to pass the buck, but a bit before my time this happened, the cost to replace that was just astounding.
To replace the festoon lights? To
replace the festoon lights and like for likes. So when the new promenade was done and they had to put in new poles and things, the cost for the festoon, this was the most cost effective and thought to be, on paper, I look back at the report and on paper these lights look fabulous, but actually when you look at them from afar, they're not as spectacular as I would have hoped. My favourite spot is sitting here up on Douglas Head and looking back, and I miss them festoon lightings. I'll tell you what I did see recently, Andy. I was out with them on a family holiday in Benidorm, and they have some fantastic LED lighting. So it is something I've brought some pictures of, and I'm going to take them back and see whether it's actually possible to get something. But it will, I promise you, it will come down to cost at the end of the day, and that's. And
do you think, coming back to this about ratepayers and obviously ratepayers' money, but do you think if you said to ratepayers, look, we're going to do the prom, it's going to look absolutely fantastic, we've got these LED lights, it's going to look like it used to do and better, do you think people would stomach a bill for that?
Well, that's a question to be asked, isn't it? You know, it'd be lovely to hear from people who said, you know, if you put my rates up 10% next year, I'll quite happily bring the festoon. Let me take this back now, and with anything within government or council, things take forever, but I've literally just come back from this trip and I've got these pictures, and I want to speak to our new director for Environment and Regen and say, is this possible? Can we look at what the cost would be? Because I'm not going to pluck a figure out of the air at the moment, but you know, the reality. So at the moment
we've got South Quay has got festoon lights.
It has, yeah.
Obviously Douglas Head has got festoon lights. You've got some around by the Welbeck Hotel, around Empire Terrace and places like that. You've got some there, and they do look fantastic. And as you say, there's no point looking back and saying people got it wrong. We need to look forward and just to see how it can be improved.
Absolutely.
For the future. But it's down to money. It's down to money, Eddie.
All money.
You hit the nail on the head when you said, you know, it's down to money and what the people want. I mean, we've just been away recently, and we were on Eastbourne. It was fantastic, festive lights. Blackpool, Southport, all those places have still got the old festive lights. And when you said just then about the inner harbour, around the town ground there, the lighting, it just shows you that that's what we want back on the prom.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right, good to hear from you, Eddie. Thanks for that. Are there any plans? Why don't this is Mary on WhatsApp, why don't the wardens apprehend the louts cycling on Castle Street, Strand Street and Duke Street? This is regular, it's dangerous, and I believe a serious injury to a pedestrian leaves Douglas City Council liable for action for damages if they continue to ignore the problem, because it's been reported.
Yes, so we do get reports of people cycling through. We have put extra signage up to ask people not to cycle through, and again, if it's reported, we do have CCTV through there now, so there is an option to report it. If you see it, we will send a warden down, they'll look at the CCTV and the people will be dealt with.
Okay, and again, has anybody been nicked, anybody been fined lately over that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, all right, so if you see anybody cycling irresponsibly on Castle Street, Duke Street and Strand Street, and I can tell you, I was there yesterday and I saw somebody doing a wheelie down the middle with their pals, but of course I'm a coward, you see. I'm certainly not going to apprehend them or say anything, but it's antisocial and it puts other people off.
And we wouldn't want people to be approaching people if you're not comfortable to do that, Andy, but as I say, we do have CCTV down there, so if it's getting reported, if the people can be identified, then they should be being dealt with.
Okay, is this police or is it bylaw officer?
It's bylaw officer.
Okay. Live with Natalie Byron-Teare on Mannin Line today.
Your place is so much better with Ace.
Kids, pets, messy partners. Your furniture goes through a lot, so it's time to freshen things up with something stylish, something sturdy, something built for real life. Ace Home and Ace Carpets are always full of Ace ideas. Come and explore our huge showroom Monday to Saturday, Middle River Industrial Estate, Douglas, or find us on Facebook.
Your place is so much better with Ace.
Oh, not again.
Oh, that Jack from next door really needs to improve his left foot.
Oh, don't worry. The storm did the damage last time, and it was easy to get a greenhouse pane from Manx Glass and Glazing.
Manx Glass and Glazing don't just do the big jobs. Visit them on Snugborough Trading Estate for all your glazing repairs and supplies. From glass tabletops and picture frame glass to greenhouse glazing, along with good old-fashioned customer service and product knowledge.
Manx Glass and Glazing. You're smashing.
Elevate Rubber Cover from Rubber Roof Shop for one-piece flat roofing systems. No joins, no leaks. We also line commercial box gutters in one piece up to 60 metres with a 20-year written warranty against leakage. Call Rubber Roof Shop on 496667.
Ramsey Care Products is now opened in St Paul's Square, Ramsey. An Aladdin's cave of stock including mobility scooters, rise recliners, household aids and more. Call 627 177 to find out more. Ramsey Care Products. Affordable mobility solutions for you.
For a wide range of wood-burning stoves and a complete installation service, visit The Snug in Ramsey. And we don't stop there. Kiln-dried firewood and full aftercare service, including chimney sweeps and maintenance. Call The Snug in Ramsey.
Ramsey Garden Centre opens 7 days a week for an extensive range of exclusive products, garden gifts and ornaments, solar water features and offers throughout the garden centre. Grow smarter, greener, season after season with Ramsey Garden Centre.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Natalie Byron-Teare is here from Douglas City Council, and Stephen's on now. Hello, Stephen.
Good afternoon, Andy. Good afternoon, Natalie, and good afternoon, listeners.
Afternoon, Stephen.
Hi, Natalie. I'd like to ask is, what is the entertainment budget that's set within the council, and how is it used? Or is there no budget, firstly? And if there is a budget, how is it spent? What does it spend on? For example, there's been very successful Peel beach stage, like Port Erin has their stage, and it has encouraged more use on the beach. And yet there doesn't seem to be anything like this happening in Douglas. You've got the small amphitheatre made outside the Sefton Hotel, but there's never, to my knowledge, been any use made of it with singers or anything of that ilk. When was the park last used, Nobles Park, for an entertainment event where people could come up and listen to music? So I'd like you to answer those questions if you have any answers, please.
Yeah, so I'll start with the budget. There's not a specific fixed budget. We don't have a specific... We do have budgets available for our city centre manager, for example, and each year we apply for funding for things like... You asked what's been held recently. We do have a beach day. We had a beach day at the start of this month on the 1st of October. The week after, we actually had our Nobles Park Fun Day. We didn't quite have a big band playing, but we did have some...
Where was the beach day? Where was it?
It's centralised around Queen's Prom area.
Right, okay.
That, in my opinion, is the best sandy. That we have sandcastle competitions, Andy, so you have to have somewhere where you can build sandcastles. Right. So we are providing these events. We have our light switch on, which this year we've gone from having just one evening on a Thursday. We're actually spreading it to a full day on a Saturday now before the late night shopping starts. That's going through council today, this afternoon.
What sort of thing would you like to see, Stephen?
Yeah.
Well, they don't seem like anything at all, Natalie, with due respect. These are events they don't seem to be geared up for the whole summer season. After all, hotels are still providing a huge rate provision for the town, and it doesn't. I'm afraid, to me, it doesn't look like the council is engaging properly in its duties to help provide entertainment not only for the visitors but for the ratepayers of Douglas. I would like to see more events. I'd certainly like you to trial a event stage on the promenade, which would run during the length of the summer.
Where would you put that stage? Because obviously there are very few places you can put a stage that's not going to be affected by the tide.
So Queen's Prom area.
It would be
beyond the promenade.
I'm sure there's areas that it could be erected, Andy. in the low tide areas, but it wouldn't do it when there's a big spring tides, etc. So I'm sure there's availability on the prom, even incorporating possibly part of the prom. I think isn't there over on Queen's Prom used to have sand racing, etc. So there's areas that it can be done. For example, late autumn, that's September, late August, September, there's still the ability, warm nights, where you could have maybe the youth orchestra or the Isle of Man orchestras to play in the park and even maybe tie up for the last night of the proms, things like that. I just feel that the council has lost sight of its responsibilities to tourism properly. They don't mind counting the rates, collecting the rate money, but there's very little provision. There was certainly a lack of thought. It went into the lighting system. It is diabolical. Everybody accepts that and knows that. There is a few that like it, but in the main, most people think it's abysmal and dark. So I just think that at some point, like most of the island, we lost interest.
Okay, Stephen, we appreciate that. I just want to. There are a couple of messages that come through on this subject of fun.
Can I just answer Stephen there, Andy, and say that I will look into that and see what we can do more.
Okay. This is on the same lines. Is there any chance of the Douglas Christmas Market coming back?
Oh, yes. Yes.
You're a fan, obviously.
A huge fan, yeah. I think markets are all city centres. We want to be a city, then we need to start having provisions that cities have. And also, it supports all our local small businesses, doesn't it? The ones that can't afford the overheads when it comes to having property. So, and we have such a unique niche market here for Manx. If you've been to any of the markets, you just see some amazing variety of.
So will there be one this year?
We're supposed to have summer markets this year. They were supposed to be starting, but yes, we will be having a Christmas market, Easter market, and we're trying to have summer markets as well.
And Gail says, talking about dogs, we've been talking about people riding bikes. Could you please stop people? Have you got any sanction for people who feed the flipping gulls?
So this is something that's come up again in bylaw discussions. At the moment, you're not allowed to feed them in open public spaces. So you're not allowed to feed them. But there's no bylaw that says you can't feed them in your garden. I don't know whether I should be sharing that, because I've told asked a lot of my neighbours, because they come very aggressive, don't they? Yeah. And it is frustrating. So in the first instance, I would say try and speak to the people doing it and ask them, make them aware of the impact it's having on you. And secondly, I will be pushing again. I did last time, and I will be pushing when we review the bylaws again to make that part of the bylaws.
Okay. Well, we got through about 20% of the questions that we got. So, Natalie, I'm going to ask you, will you come back?
I would love to come back, Andy. Okay. Thank you.
And what's your email address again if somebody wants to get in touch?
You can get all my contact details are on the Douglas City Council website if you go to the councillors section, but cllr.nbyron@douglas.gov.im. I welcome any suggestions, any queries. I'm here to help.
Okay. Thanks for being with us today. Good to talk to you. You've been with Natalie Byron-Teare from Douglas City Council. A week tomorrow, Thursday the 20th, we got the interim chief exec from Manx Care. Chris Stockport is on the air. I'm back with another open line tomorrow. Thanks to Donna on the phones today. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
WINT